MicroStrategy, well, now Strategy, is sitting on over 629,000 Bitcoin. At today's price, that stash is worth $72 billion. And the stock? It's trading at 358 bucks. Analysts say it could nearly double. But naturally, investors are wondering, is this even possible? Here's the problem. Strategy's core software business is basically flat. All those billions, it's just from Bitcoin. And that makes the stock less like Microsoft and more like a leveraged crypto ETF with a corporate logo slapped on it. Now, there is one signal I'm watching, the Bitcoin halving signal, which suggests that this rally may be peaking sooner than you might think. If you're new to the channel, my name is Rick Orford. I've been trading since 1999, and no, I'm not a financial advisor, which means I'm not here to sell you some overpriced ETF. I don't do hype, I do numbers. And strategy, well, those numbers are pretty wild. Stick with me until the end, because in today's video, I'm going to break down whether strategy is a rocket or a wreck waiting to happen. I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. The Motley Fool is a company that provides investing insight and stock recommendations for investors of all skill sets and risk levels. And you all know how much I love researching new stocks and trying to find the next best investment. So I'm proud to partner with The Motley Fool to bring you 10 stock picks from their popular product, Stock Advisor. Stock Advisor has beaten the market by almost 6 times. Go to fool.com/ricko to get your 10 stock picks right now. So before we talk stock prices and catalysts, let's zoom out a little. Who exactly is Strategy? Strategy started as an enterprise software firm that helps companies transform massive data sets into actionable insights. Strategy was founded in 1989, and for decades it operated consistently in the world of business intelligence, serving clients across industries with analytics tools and services. But then in 2020, Strategy adopted a new strategy for its corporate treasury. Instead of keeping its reserves in cash, it began acquiring Bitcoin on a large scale. And that move split Wall Street in half. Some called it genius, others called it reckless. Regardless, Strategy today holds more cryptocurrency than any other publicly traded company, giving it the unusual distinction of continuing as an enterprise software provider while also standing out as one of the largest corporate holders of Bitcoin. So why is Strategy grabbing headlines right now? Because it's not just about the software. Strategy is in the news thanks to Bitcoin's historic bull run, which just made its all-time high price of around $124,000. Right now, though, it is trading a little lower, around $114,000. Meanwhile, Strategy owns over 629,000 Bitcoins and acquired them at an average cost of $73,320 each, which means they're now sitting on over $25 billion in paper profits. That's more than the GDP of some small countries. Aside from that, Strategy raised $500 million through a convertible notes offering that was made before the recent run-up in Bitcoin. So the company has gained new relevance as Bitcoin prices have surged, and that's a factor that's contributed to Strategy's market traction in the overall market. But overall, I think Strategy is all about being the biggest proxy to investing in Bitcoin. And that's the story that no one on Wall Street can ignore. With Bitcoin out of the way, let's shift our focus to Strategy's stock specifically, because at the end of the day, this is what investors actually trade. If you want to follow along, go ahead and scan this QR code. At the time of recording, Strategy stock is rated a strong buy from a consensus of 14 analysts. There's a high target price set of $705, which suggests an upside potential of as high as 97%, almost double. But remember, upside is never guaranteed. The stock has been weakening over the past 3 months, but it's up 24% year to date. Based on a short-term metric, I can see why some call it a buy. But I'll discuss more of its valuation later so that you can decide. Of course, we can't check Strategy's price without comparing it to Bitcoin's. And surprisingly, Strategy has outperformed Bitcoin over the last year. They follow the same general trajectory, but Strategy has been a bit more volatile, especially back in March and April. I'd say this is likely because overall, it's probably easier to buy a stock than it is to buy a Bitcoin. Now, let's see if Strategy's financials are as bullish as Bitcoin's rally, because that's a very good question, I think. The company's second quarter earnings reported sales of $114.5 million, up 2.7% year over year. Aside from that, Strategy also swung from a loss last year to a net income of $10 billion, marking a staggering 9,870% increase. So how is that possible? Well, that income is driven almost entirely by an unrealized $14 billion gain on its Bitcoin holdings. Under the new fair value accounting rules, those gains, even on paper, flow directly to earnings, making results highly sensitive to crypto's price swings. For investors, that means the huge profit is more of an accounting trick than actual cash earned. The core software business remains relatively flat, contributing very little, especially compared to Bitcoin's impact. Now, the rally has handed Strategy billions in paper profits. The flip side is clear. If Bitcoin turns south, earnings are just going to reverse just as quickly. Now, let's talk about the upside, the catalysts that could push Strategy stock even higher. Strategy's executive chairman and also former CEO Michael Saylor is a well-known and liked personality in the cryptocurrency industry. His leadership is said to be one of the biggest contributors to Bitcoin's bullish run. When everything was down 5 years ago, Strategy, well, they bought aggressively. Now that it's making all-time highs, the company still accumulates. And that's conviction that most investors don't have. And markets reward conviction, especially when you're right. Now, cryptocurrency investors often have a higher tolerance for risk, and Bitcoin's volatility is part of what draws everyone in. If more investors mirror Strategy's conviction, which continues to see Bitcoin as a long-term asset rather than a short-term trade, then I think Bitcoin's price movement can see some further momentum upward. For Strategy, that would translate into even larger gains on its massive holdings, at least on paper. With strong financial results and growing support from both traditional and crypto-focused investors, well, that confidence has the potential to lift Strategy stock even higher, with its massive Bitcoin holdings acting as a lever on these results. Now, if Bitcoin climbs, Strategy stock doesn't just rise. It rockets, amplified by its massive exposure. Of course, every rocket does have risk, and for Strategy, the red flags, well, they're hard to ignore. Strategy makes most of its money from Bitcoin, and it could be a double-edged sword if the company does not take those profits. While Bitcoin moves up fast, it can also go down just as quickly, which translates into losses in just a short amount of time. And the real question then becomes, when does the bull run end for Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin undergoes a halving about every 4 years, and this cuts the mining reward in half, which reduces the rate of new supply. This programmed scarcity is a key reason that past halvings have been followed by powerful bull runs, with peaks usually 12 to 18 months later. And with the most recent halving in April of 2024, well, it's been fueling today's rally. But as supply pressure eases and the cycle matures, history suggests that the current bullish momentum may already be approaching its peak. Outside of Bitcoin, Strategy's core software business tells a different story. Quarterly revenues rose just 2.7% year over year, with subscription growth offset by declines in support and services. It's solid, but hardly enough to match its crypto gains. So the risk is clear. If Bitcoin cools off, Strategy's earnings will collapse, and its software business isn't nearly strong enough to catch the fall. Now, let's tackle the big question on every investor's mind. Is Strategy stock actually worth buying? Well, for that, let's look at the technicals. Compared with its software peers like Microsoft and Salesforce, Strategy isn't being priced like a normal software stock. Its trailing PE of 29.74 is a little lower than its industry peers. But profit margins, well, they're sitting at a whopping minus 252%, showing that without its investments in Bitcoin, well, the core business itself, it's just not profitable. And the real giveaway is the price to sales ratio, which is 206.5, compared to 13.3 for Microsoft and 6.2 for Salesforce. By software standards, that looks wildly overvalued. But unlike Microsoft and Salesforce, Strategy's investors are buying the stock because they value it as a leveraged proxy on Bitcoin rather than a genuine belief in its technology. And the takeaway? By traditional software metrics, Strategy is overvalued. But if you treat it as a Bitcoin proxy, well, the valuation could start to make sense. And that's exactly what makes this stock so polarizing. So who should buy Strategy stock? Well, let's be real, Strategy isn't for everyone. Due to its undeniable connection to crypto, Strategy, I think, is for investors who like high-risk, high-reward plays. And not only that, Strategy Inc. gives investors leveraged access to Bitcoin. That means magnifying gains when Bitcoin rises, but also losses magnify when Bitcoin drops. And both scenarios will surely happen at some point. And don't forget, Bitcoin's price tends to move in cycles tied to halving, an event that happens every 4 years that reduces new supply and has historically driven big rallies. If you understand this and can wait out the volatility, Strategy stock could be a speculative play, but at the same time, a potentially rewarding investment. Now, there is no guarantee that it's going to hit another all-time high after this run, but that upside could be significant if it does. Keep in mind, before this rally, many doubted Bitcoin would ever break past its previous record of $69,000 set just 4 years ago. So if you're a conservative investor, this stock will feel like chaos. But if you thrive on volatility and believe in Bitcoin's cycle, well, Strategy could be your kind of play. And while I do see a place for cryptocurrency, I don't personally invest in Bitcoin specifically. Though I do wish I went through my $100 speculative purchase that I was about to make back in 2010. And if I kept those Bitcoins at last check, they'd have been worth something like $22 million or something crazy like that. But look, if you like Bitcoin and you're looking for a way to invest in it without actually buying Bitcoin, well, Strategy could be your best option today. But remember, stocks like this are high drama, which means timing matters more than anything. Keep your eyes peeled to Bitcoin's cycle because that's the real driver here. But what about you? Are you buying into Strategy's vision in 2025? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're there, if you happen to find this video helpful, please like and subscribe so others will find the video as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.